Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ali Hasnain with you again at Hasnain Taqvi, trying to give you a clear concept on how to use prepositions. You're already familiar with what prepositions are. It's essentially a word that normally precedes a noun or pronoun. It normally again relates that noun and pronoun, let's say me. This object has been related to this part of the sentence through this preposition. It's a domain that you need to practice upon, because most often our mother tongue influence troubles us. We pick the wrong choice. To understand this better, I would tell you to understand first the types of prepositions. This is a simple preposition, one word. If instead we have two words together making a preposition, that is called compound preposition. And if you have verb plus preposition, this is called phrasal preposition or phrasal verb. Actually, this domain is something complex in nature, because unless you learn this by heart, there's no solution to it. Just to give you an example, two travelers in a train, like one was French, the other was English. They were moving to some destination. French knew English, but not an expert, especially not an expert on phrasal prepositions. And when he was hanging his head outward to enjoy the scenic beauty, English person shouted, "Watch out." Now this word watch, the verb, and with this preposition out, he took it to be literal expression of seeing further. So he extended his head outward. The train was about to enter into a tunnel, and his extending outward had caused a severe accident, because watch out actually meant be watchful, take care, stay back. He, instead of doing that, did the reverse of it. Resultantly, he lost his life. So this is very costly affair. If you don't understand the exact meanings of these phrasal verbs, you don't use them properly then. You actually encounter troubles with regard to managing this domain. Through practice of variety of contents, we would learn this area. But there is a bit of concept that once you gather, it facilitates you in managing compound and simple prepositions. Just to give you an insight as to how they function, these simple and compound prepositions, I give you this circle activity. Common prepositions in terms of simple and compound I'd be using to show what position, direction, place is determined through them. See, if it is a plane surface and there is something placed on that, you see I said on. You use on for the purpose. There is a lighter shade that when this thing goes flat on a surface, instead of on, then you say at. Like the paper is at the table. The book is on the table. If it is a jug, let's say, it has to be on the table. There is another concept like over or above. These are kinds of distances that are not touched by the surface, like sky is over us, above us only God. So this is a concept of above you but detached from your this physical contact. On the same pattern, if you write something here, you are writing below. Okay. If instead something is trapped here, let's say this was a carpet and maybe a letter underneath it, the concept is that of underneath now. And just under is necessarily detached from the top surface, and like you are standing under the tree. He was, let's say, under the shade. He was under the roof. So those surfaces above you, they don't touch you there. Now let's see, if we say this is an apple, this apple is in the circle. If you are throwing it from outside to place it in here, you are doing the activity of violating the surface and getting into a new place, like the apple was thrown into the room. Now this, if I say in continuous version, let's say the bird was flying into the room. Try to guess how its sense is sort of disturbed with this continuous structure. That means the bird was continuously flying into, whereas into is just one-time act. You just fly into the room or circle or whichever place. Then you are in it. Before that you are out. Okay? So if you are standing in a pool of water, you are standing in water. If you are jumping from outside into water, you are jumping into water. So that is what you have to necessarily take care of every time you use any of these prepositions, in or into. When there is a reference of another entity and you are standing here somewhere, you would refer to that as across. Like let's say the river is across the field. So this is a view that you give with regard to its place. But if we come here and we see in terms of these two entities, you can either use by or beside. Both these by and large mean the same thing. Like the river is by the orchard, or the river is beside the orchard, or the school is beside the church. So basically this is to show approximity, like closeness. Let's talk about some other, like if you say for, it establishes relationship with another entity, just as of does. Like if I say this is for me, I am relating something with myself. If people are here and you have heard that quote, government of the people. So this is the government. You are relating it to this entity. So for and of. Something when you ascribe to yourself, you take it for yourself. You have an affection for something, like you are moving from your side, your perspective to some other object, you go for of, which is actually pronounced as of. Of is this one with double F. This of thing is like detached. See, this was attaching with the object. This is detaching. You are not talking in terms of connection, rather disassociation. Like government of the people normally in America, but in our country, government of the people, like staying away from the people. So of is distance. Of is relation, closeness. There are other prepositions, simple or compound, you can understand with reference to this circle activity. But to understand better, I give you an insight as to how certain words mean certain things. When I say words, that means prepositions. Let's talk about, to begin with, prepositions of time. See, there are three references. One is calendar wise, like in terms of years and months. Then again, calendar wise, you have two references in terms of days and what else? Dates. Just one example. Year 1947, when Pakistan was created. Month, let's say August. Day, let's say Friday. Dates, let's say 14th. Now, you need to remember that whenever you are referring to year, your preposition is in. Again, month, preposition is in. So we would say in 1947, Pakistan was created. In August, Pakistan was created. When instead, you are talking about such things like, let's say, day. I say Monday. Friday I have already mentioned, so let's say on Monday. Or if there's this reference dates, on 14th August. So for this reference, you have on for days or for dates. See, for year, for month, in, for days and dates, on. Now we come to clock reference. That is in terms of, let's say, hours, minutes, and seconds. Whenever you have generated any clock reference, all you have to mentally work out that this particular reference belongs to which area, calendar or clock. If it is calendar related, you have to just work out whether year or month, or instead day or date. If it is year or month, in. If it is day or date, on. If instead it is clock reference, let's say 5 o'clock. Let's say 15 minutes. Let's say 20 seconds. The entire reference would be at 5 o'clock, and you can run on with the minutes and seconds. So for clock reference, it is always at. Now I would give you an activity that I have taken from social media, some sentences where you would apply this understanding. Once that is done, we would move on to other areas of this preposition. It's like applying that what we have just learned. See, the function will be held dash Thursday. Now you have a calendar related entry, and it is like a day. What would you say? On Thursday. Again, calendar related area. The first annual sports day was held, but it's like this was pertaining to day or dates. This is pertaining to year and month. For this, our preposition is in. The first annual sports day was held in 1999. My friend said that he would meet you. This is clock related entry. And for clock related entry, we have understood the right use of this preposition. So even without seeing what the sentence says, you could properly use your preposition by referring to these entries. Clock, at. My friend said that he would meet you at 5 o'clock. Without going back to the actual sentence, just this month. So year and month, what do we have to say? In. Now we read the sentence. I'll appear for my exams in August. Perfectly all right. We have made no error whatsoever. Scientific Museum was closed now this is a day again on this pattern. So you use the same preposition. Saint-Avian was closed on Saturday. Saint-Avian English class starts. You have time reference, time reference, time reference. Preposition at 4 o'clock. He will visit us. Now you have the month, but before that you have this number. What do we gather? Like if it is a month, what do we say? In July. But if there is this day or date, this is third. What do we do with such sentences? Like, do we have some day or date? Thursday. So that applies itself here. He'll visit us on 3rd July. Now, we are not focusing on the month now. The adjective itself that pertains to a day or a date. So required entry is on. I've used one sentence with different references to come up with effective review of this concept so that we could proceed. We'll launch our new sessions. Come up, your choice? Correct, in 2020. We'll launch our new sessions. What? Like year, like month, in calendar related. In. This is like, we will launch our new sessions dash 15th July. So day on 15th July. If it were July only, in. If it is day or date, day, date, your required preposition is on. And now clock reference. We'll launch our new sessions at 5 o'clock. So make no mistakes, the job is very easy when you actually decipher as to which entity you are referring to. Like if it is year, accordingly, if it is clock, accordingly, day and month. Hopefully you have understood this concept. We move on to preposition of place, and the area which actually troubles many, even your teachers. Let's try to learn it in a manner that we could not really confuse ourselves. We do that with reference to these two prepositions, in and at. These are pertaining to place reference. Now we often encounter troubles in referring to, let's say, he is at canteen or in canteen. There is this confusion. He is at Chandni Chowk or in Chandni Chowk. He is at Karachi or in Karachi. Let's say he is at airport or in airport. Let's say some more that cause trouble. He is taking his food in office or at office. Again a trouble. He is, like, let's say sitting at the car or in a car. This literally is a trouble. Now just try to understand one single point to be able to be right every time with regard to taking your choices on this preposition of place. Remember always, in is something, how do they make that 3D? Let me try that. And this, and maybe this. Okay, I've come up with a good shape. Now, in is this kind of concept. Remember the circle activity. I told you, in is within the parameters or the boundaries of something. And with regard to at, simply remember one word. It is always location based. It gives you the place where somebody is at. And in gives you the enveloped position of that individual. So moving back to these few examples that we had here, apparently trouble in deciphering what should be the right choice. Now, if it is like say canteen and then space and then college. Now the individual is actually in college because college is a bigger place, canteen is within that, and he is at canteen in college. Canteen is basically giving us location where he is at. In is talking about his otherwise place, general. It doesn't give you exact location. A person in college, you would be searching madly where exactly he is unless you know exact location, and that exact location comes through at. Now, Chandni Chowk is a location. We know where we could use in. We would obviously go for at. Karachi, now, it's a larger city, and the concept that grammar gives us, you are like lost into a larger space. You are within that. So, for such areas, preferably we use in. He is in Karachi, and there with this idea there is another concept linked that if you talk in terms of smaller towns, you use at. But just for a second we try doing that, and we understand that our concept applies there too. Kala Shakaku I intend to write. See if it is Kala Shakaku and grammar says say at Kala Shakaku. Why? Because in is a concept of a larger place, larger in the context of cities and towns, and at is smaller place. But see, at Kala Shakaku is also giving you location. You just reach that town, ask anybody, you would get to that person. Slighter shade, a bit complex, but obviously location is there. If somebody is at Karachi, it would be quite a task finding him. It's like a needle in a desert maybe. So you cannot say at. You would go for in. When it comes to different cities, you have to think in terms of larger places, in, smaller towns, at. But in general, the actual concept of location, when you get the exact location of a place, simply use at, otherwise in. So airport is a location, obviously. Where is he? He's at airport. You are not in airport. It's not something of a kind which envelops you there. So it's general location. Somebody at office or in office. Now this is a debatable issue. Remember I told you a sentence that he was taking his dinner or lunch maybe. Now it is with regard to the place within where he is. We are not trying to give his location in this context. So you have to even work out on the context whether we intend to project the exact location of the individual or it is instead the place where he is. So he is in office. He is taking his lunch in office. Again this car, like the individual within that is always trapped in it, in car. If it is at car, that would be a different concept and problematic actually. I give you some statements after this to assess your understanding of the concept of in and at, and then other concepts related to this preposition and many more to follow. Okay, now turn your attention towards this, what I've written here. The sentence says, we met dash the chai khana. You have to apply your understanding of place or general reference of place, like location and general reference of place. Now, is it general reference of a place or specific location? We met in the chai khana or at the chai khana? What exactly? Come again. All right, I can hear you. You have opted for at. Yes, it is a location. At the coffee shop, at the chai khana, at the roundabout, at Parliament House. So when you are referring to some location, you have to be very sure to use this at. Is this location or like where you are enveloped in and placed therein? We met dash the bus stop. Should it be on the bus stop? Like, remember what I told you about on. Apart from this concept, reach on Friday, reach on Sunday. If I'll get back to that. But before that, let's finish this concept here. Like, we are talking about bus stop. We are not talking in terms of a surface and a contact there, like the book is on the table. If you try to apply your understanding, this is a surface and this thing is placed on it. That contact is not the concept here, bus stop. It's exactly to point out the location. So this is what you have to work out. You would say, we met at the bus stop, not on the bus stop. Now, I live dash Barrier Town dash Islamabad. Now this is with regard to in and then on concept. Larger place is this. So in Islamabad, smaller place is this. Location is basically Barrier Town and city is Islamabad. So I live at Barrier Town in Islamabad. Now you try this one. The police officer is standing dash the main gate. Is he standing in the main gate, on the main gate, or at the main gate? Obviously we have to see his location. Where is he at? He's at the main gate. I personally believe if you apply this insight on right use of prepositions in, at and on with regard to places, locations, you would find no difficulty, inshallah. Then again, moving back to this concept of on, this on reference we have already understood in terms of using with days and, you know, like on Sunday, on Monday, on Tuesday, on 3rd August, on 4th August. So days and dates both take on. So they met on Friday, on Sunday. Now this is Halloween, a function celebrated in terms of the return of the spirits maybe. Should it be calendar-wise or day-wise or what? Like on, in, at, what would you do with this? They met at Halloween. Is it a location? They met in Halloween? No, obviously not. They met, Halloween is basically a day. So be specific about that. It's like they met on Halloween. You have in reference, you have on reference, but you have this reference that would dictate your choice here. They met on 11th. The rest, like they met in September, they met in 2010, but they met on 11th. So this is how you go with reference to on, in and at. Now talking about this on, the concept of place, like we have talked about anything like the cell phone is on the chair. There is this concept of in as well. Quite often you have heard of on or in, like he is sitting sofa and the choices say A, B. On a sofa or in a sofa. Now the concept actually that English people use is with regard to comfort surrounding and like being deep into it. In that case in, otherwise on. So if it is a couch or a chair, normally you simply sit on a couch, on a chair. If it is an armchair and this reference is generated by your writer, then you need to be sure that this requires in. He is sitting in an armchair, and sofa again may take any of the two. If you use in, that means you are referring to the comfort it offers, because again on cushion when you sit you go a bit deep into it, comfy feelings are gathered and you are like surrounded by foam maybe. So this is fine, not a problem. You could be on sofa as well. Your writer, if it gives you both, then you have to see whether there is any reference created to the luxury, to the surrounding, to the side rest, or it is just general sofa. Accordingly, on when it is random sitting, in when it is contextual comfort. This is what you have to make sure when to choose between on or in. Now, on is otherwise used for devices. Like any device you are talking about, let's say machine, and any activity carried out there. Like I was watching a tutorial on television. I was watching this season on Netflix. So what are we doing? For referring to devices and machines, we are using on. He works on a computer. We resolve the sums on a calculator. So every time we are referring to any device or machine, our preferable choice, or maybe the only choice, is on. This usage you have to remember separately. Again, when we are talking in terms of body parts and anything on that, we only use on. Like he spilled the tea on his leg, or maybe the ice cream fell on his arm. So what are we doing? Seeing the body part and accordingly using on there. Another use of on is with regard to like state, condition that it refers to. Like if I say on deathbed, so he's not in deathbed, he's on deathbed, because this is his critical condition, he is pasted on that. So on reference is generated with regard to on bed, even he's on bed. Being in bed is different. On bed is like the state where you are resting. This you have to bear in mind. 3 usages: device machine wise, body parts wise, and state wise, like what feelings you have at mental level on. Physical conditions as well on. Another usage that troubles with regard to this on is that of on to. Preposition on to, compound preposition, 2 prepositions together. The only difference that you need to bear in mind is it's quite like on, but it is a dynamic version. Like there is this activity shown in any sentence where, like if you are climbing on to the tree or roof, let's say. If there is a cat and it is jumping on to anything, a table maybe. So on to is from one place to the other, this sort of movement that is captured through this preposition on to. On to has another concept too, like idiomatic expression. When you say we are on to it, this on to actually means in the knowledge of something. That means you are aware of it. Like a surprise party was arranged by him, but he did not finally throw it in our honor because he knew that we were onto it. Obviously it would not be any surprise anymore. So onto means in the knowledge of. He knew that we were in the knowledge of it. So the surprise party was cancelled. This is another usage, but that doesn't confuse because that is a separate idiomatic learning. The actual problem is with regard to on and on to. Now, dear students, we have to distinguish the difference between on to, and upon. We have seen on with reference to a surface, like he was standing on the roof. So roof is the surface and the individual is placed there as like contacting the surface. Onto is movement. So the action is of continuous kind, like I said the cat jumped onto the shelf. This onto, we won't say the cat jumped on the shelf, because obviously you have to talk in terms of that movement from one surface to the other. So this movement is being referred to in terms of onto. And I need to clarify your concept on this on. Like if we say on, remember this surface is touched. When I say the cup is on the table, its bottom half is touching the top half of the table. Try to understand this. Thereby, if I say he jumped on the wall, that logic falsifies this sentence. How can he touch something and he would obviously trip over? How could he jump clear of that? So instead of on, we use here he jumped over the wall. This obviously with reference to different papers we would get to understand better. Now dear students, you have to understand the concept of upon. Different from on is like being on a surface. Upon is a concept that like one action is completed and another action relates itself with that, but in a way that the time lapse is to the minimum. Like we may say, upon getting his results, he ran towards his mother. Now you understand that this upon, why we have used that. If instead we say on getting his results, this is one activity that doesn't sort of connect itself with his second activity. So if you are performing something immediately after another action, you preferably use upon. Like upon getting married, he moved to Karachi. Right after that, immediately. Though even if you use on, that would not be incorrect because that too talks in terms of a moment. But essentially when you get choices between the two, you need to understand what upon means here. This actually is performing something immediately after another thing. Upon has another meanings as well, which actually means something that is about to happen. For example, Eidul Azha is upon us. This upon means it is about to happen. It is like likely to occur soon. In a month's time, our dues would be upon us. This is a separate usage that you need to understand. Upon means something likely to occur very soon, rather late. So upon is in a way a concept in terms of on upon when you differentiate, which would be reckoned as more formal, like you can call it a formal concept. Therefore with such verbs, depend, congratulate or insist, though normally you can use on, but when you have a choice and you want to go formal, you should prefer upon. Like after his success, I congratulated him. Now to say the same, I congratulated him on his success, fine, no problem. I congratulated him upon his success. This is considered very formal and acceptable with the decent class. So congratulate someone upon something. Normally we say we depend on you, but his entire life depended upon your decision. So that means sort of impact, which is more forceful than on. So upon is what has a larger consequences, let's say. I insist on your visit is a normal casual way of demanding somebody's arrival. But I insist upon changing your schedule. So you are bent upon doing something. Again, force is added. Bent on, we don't say. We say he's hell bent upon destroying his chances. So upon is, in that context, a very forceful concept. There is another concept with upon. It is like you are talking in terms of different units, like he ran mile upon mile. It actually means he ran well here, but he ran with greater energy and greater vigor and sort of intention on this too. The way we say last but not the least, this means sort of emphasizing next mile equally, or rather more. Let's say if I use the sentence, he worked hard year upon year. So this means he worked hard here, he worked harder here. That context is to be understood, year upon year. Like, though normally instead of upon we use by as well. He ran mile by mile, or he ran mile on mile, even English people say. But remember, it is upon that you have to use when you talk in terms of two units and you talk in terms of its continuity and force being the same. This is how you go on to this. Upon also is like the concept of onto in another meanings, another shade of it. See, dear students, man is placed, like the usage of upon or onto. We may say onto this planet, with or for two different meanings, but you can use either of the two. Man is placed onto this planet for a purpose. Now, instead of this onto, you can use upon, which means exactly the same. The purpose is to highlight your movement on this planet Earth and the life sketch, like overall the way you are spending your time. That is well covered through this use of upon. Now we move on to some other confusions that exist in the domain of prepositions and wind up this and the rest of the strength we would gather by practicing, because you know practice makes you perfect. Let's do that now. Well, dear students, with this we are heading towards the close of this session, and some more prepositions, and especially those that utter sort of trouble, pose problems of the kind that are difficult to decipher. With, let's begin with it. With as a preposition denotes feelings and sensations, like anything that pertains to your feelings or to your general mood. You can use with preposition, like I was shocked with his conduct. Now, this word shocked, or even if you use surprised, normally we say surprised at, but are you surprised with his behavior? What you need to bear in mind when you are generating feelings, you can use this with expression. I was angry with my friend. So your mood and then the preposition, which is stating your feelings, sensations. Like then you talk about an individual. However, in this case, with specifically this word angry, you need to understand that if it is followed by an individual, only then you use with. If it is a thing, like I was angry with my friend at his conduct. So angry at is also an expression. That is the domain I referred to initially, that you have to separately learn, because generally knowing where a preposition is to be used, the moment it comes to phrasal verbs, what you call phrasal prepositions, you have problem handling specific sense that is generated by a given combination. Those combinations are to be obviously separately learned. Understanding this, that with feelings and sensations, normally we use with. When you have four options, you would understand what your writer wants there. With is again preferable choice, and probably the only choice when it comes to different tools. Like this is a marker. I am writing with marker. So when you are applying a tool, you use with. He hit it with a hammer. or he cut the vegetable with a knife. See, these are the tools that we are using, and to use any tool you refer to the structure with. Again, you may say with scissors. However, remember that sentence that you used to learn in your initial grades, like he is writing with pen in ink. See what is happening here? When we are referring to a tool, we are using with. When we are referring to a medium, we are using in. So you have to learn again such structures separately. There may be off and on violations of the kind that would trouble you as to how you learned it and how actually it is practiced. Like certain feelings that don't take with, like rude. You are rude to people, not rude with people. Again, that pattern, polite to, kind to, these expressions take to instead of with. You obviously will have to learn those separately. To talk about possessions, in terms of this word having, you use with. I want a house with garden, a computer with accessories, like that has its accessories, that is having accessories, or that possesses accessories. In that context, again, you use with. Don't use with in terms of Urdu influence, like South. You have different other shades too. Now, moving to word by and trying to understand how that is to be used. I gave you this understanding. It describes means, like how something is done. If I send a letter, I send it by, let's say, post. This post is a mean that was applied to do something. Therefore, this preposition by is being used to illustrate those means. Again, if I say, I did it by mistake, what am I applying here? That means adopted to do something were by mistake, by chance. So every time you come up with any means, deciphering or decoding, not to decode even, stating the means, you take this preposition by the support of my friend. So you are pointing out the means involved in doing something. Again, for traveling in general, you use by. It is by bus, it is by plane, by Tonga, by car. However, there is a concept involved in grammar at a sophisticated level. They say moving, it is again traveling, but traveling through your legs. So on foot. Then you say, let's say on bicycle. How is bicycle spelled? Oh, it's troubling me. Maybe this way, bicycle. On bicycle. Okay. You are carrying out some journey, but such journeys that are small, they are referred to through on, and the other which are long, by train, by other modes of travel, you use by. So these exceptions easy to understand. When you have to talk in terms of word doer, like somebody who does something, like you see a painting and there is this written by Sarali, though I'm no painter, but this shows the doer of some project. By can be used for that purpose too. The book is by that author. This concept next to and beside is also pointed out through by, like the school is by my house. So that means it is by the side of my house or near to my, proximity is being given through this expression by, which can be given and should be given through this by. However, the word beside itself, you should know how to rightly use it. As you should know, the very by we are using, it should not be this one, it is this preposition by. And on the pattern, it is besides, which has a different meanings. In addition to. Addition to, like besides a mosque, there were many other buildings in that locality. So in addition to a mosque. When we say beside, this is by the side of, like close to. Beside Ali, he was standing, so next to him. This by the side of sense is given through the very word by. You can say like the river is by my house front. By is also used to assign a deadline. This is important to understand because at times we tend to confuse this with until. By is for deadline. Like if I make this sort of line curve and call this an activity and this time period without activity. Now I make another line here. By means here and that's it. Let's say by 5th July you must apply. So this is the deadline that we are pointing out through by. Now until is different. It actually involves the very concept of doing something for a stretched period of time and reaching to that level, end level. And it is again not a deadline. It is talking about the total duration. Whereas by is like end moment. Beyond that, you are not entitled to do that thing. Like you are familiar with hearing this, by Monday you should submit your assignments. By next Tuesday, we will have done this. Like if you are assigning some task to someone, you are giving a deadline, that means he should not start doing it right away. Or even if he does it, he should know that that is the moment by that he has to accomplish it. So by is deadline and until is like if I draw a line on the pattern, this activity goes on and continues to this point. So he works until 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. This is ending moment, time referred to, and the activity was going on in the past too. In such case, he works by 5 o'clock, that is faulty. Obviously, even otherwise it doesn't sound good. But quite an expressions you would come across, so many of them, where by and until apparently would seem interchangeable. You are not to interchange them. You have to use the right sense there. Like by is for offering a deadline and until is to refer to the closing time. Till next time then, Khudai Paman. It has been pleasure interacting with you once again. Allah Hafiz.